What's up guys, Armada here, and in today's video we are gonna go over some of the follow-up questions that you guys asked me after my first episode of Metagame. When I was going over my thoughts on the documentary, we decided to, have some follow-up questions for you guys. So I picked out 8 of them, so let's go over them. The first one was, were you surprised by anything your past self said? I actually did have one moment that I absolutely forgot about, and I guess it's one of the more iconic ones from the doc. It was the whole sequence with young Link and how the Swedish Smash community, we the whole fight club, we don't talk about this outside of these events, stuff like that. So I actually did crack up a little bit watching that part. I really did not remember that part, but it was funny, and a lot of people liked it. Besides that, I don't really think it was anything that I did forget really, so I think that would be the one and only. But a little bit of a nice surprise even for myself. Next question is going to be, I really want to know how you had the money back then to travel over and over again to the States. Alright, so this one, to the first Genesis, it was actually like a super big gamble on my part. I did not have the money to travel to Genesis 1. Back then, flights to North America was significantly more expensive, not only due to the fact that I was a kid, but flight prices were significantly higher back then. For some reason, they have gone much lower in past 5, 6, maybe even 7 years. So basically what happened was that Genesis 1 was coming up. Me and Aniolas, we really wanted to travel to this tournament. I did not have the money, so I actually asked my grandparents if I could borrow $1,000, which was a fortune for a 16-year-old kid that had never owned $1,000, simultaneously in their whole life. But for me, it was a dream going to the US, right? And compete against the best players and trying to become the best player myself, right? So I basically explained to my grandparents, how hard I had worked for this, that this might be, the last chance. Because at the time, we didn't really know how much longer Melee was gonna, be around. So this was, possibly the last chance. So I managed to convince them. The thing is, I actually wasn't technically even the best player in Europe yet. I hadn't played against European AMSA for a long time because we didn't really have any big major events in Europe following Epida Smash Arena 2, which was in February 2008. And Genesis was the summer of 2009, right? So I hadn't played against AMSA for a long time. So when I did borrow the money, I wasn't even officially the best player in Europe. I mean, you clearly could argue I wasn't even the best player in Sweden because Carl W had beaten me. I don't remember exactly when I went to my grandparents, but he had beaten me a few months prior, at the end of 2008. So yeah, it was a massive gamble, but luckily it paid off. Question number 3, anything you wish got covered more? I mean, it's always cool stuff from a personal point of view. It would have been cool to see, what happened after Apex 2015. But it's so many things happening, in those years following. Not only from my own point of view, but other players as well. So I think Apex 2015 was still a good point to wrap it up. But if we talk more in the time frame the doc actually covered, I think the 2 things I would like to see more from other people's perspective would have been honestly even more PPMD stuff. I know some people might be like, oh, but we got to see a lot from PPMD, but I feel of the top 5 at the time, he's probably the one that has had the least coverage over the years. And sure, you could argue that he hasn't really been going to tournaments for a long time and stuff, but I feel that would be the most I could personally like maybe be surprised by that I don't know as much. The other players, I feel like I would have like more knowledge about. So I think more PPMD stuff from my own point of view could be fun. And then if I gotta pick one more player, I would say King. He did have some time periods in the time frame the doc was happening where he was doing very good, especially like late 2013. He was winning a lot of tournaments in a row. He went into Apex 2014 as the first seed, if I remember correctly. And King has always been like the one I'm the closest to of like that group of players. So yeah, it would have been cool to see King getting some more footage as well. But I mean, everything can't be included. But if I gotta pick two players, yeah, I would say more PPMD and more King stuff. Question number 4. In Metagame, PPMD said his parents did not like that he played Melee for a living. Were your parents supportive of you playing Melee for a living? So basically, when I was like a little kid and playing, from what I remember, my parents tried to be like, maybe you should play a little bit less. Like, they were never against me playing video games. Like, after all, my dad was actually the one that got the brothers, all of us, into like playing video games. So I mean, that's his fault, right? But yeah, I think they like try to be like, oh, maybe play like a little bit less video games is not wrong, but maybe like expand a bit more too. But they quickly realized that video games was like my biggest passion, favorite hobby, whatever you want to call it. So they were always cool with it. And then also when I started going to tournaments, my first tournament, I was not even 12 years old. So in terms of like real life responsibilities, there wasn't really any. Like, you go to school, you do your like basic homework, and that's it, right? So the fact that Aniolas is roughly 6 years older than me, even though I was a little kid, like he was like basically early adult when we started going to tournaments, more or less. So that, opened up the gate for both me and Android to go to tournaments, even though we were very young. And at the point like where I could play Melee truly professionally, like I'd played Melee for so many years. So yeah, they were always like very supportive of me and Aniolas and Android as well. So I didn't really experience these type of issues that a lot of people sadly have to experience. So yeah, my parents, they were very, very supportive. Basically, like when I was in high school and stuff, that's like around the time I traveled to like the US and stuff. My parents were very chill about it. Basically, it was like, make sure to do well in school, take care of that, and you can go to tournaments. So it's basically like, you just do what you're supposed to do, and you can compete. But if you start slacking with school and, your grades like just fall down and you don't give a shit, then you're not going to go to tournaments. So it was, for me, it felt like a perfect deal. Like, all right, I'm just going to do my homework and take care of it, and I can go to tournaments. Win-win. No argues, and I can do what I enjoy. So, like, some people might say, oh, that's like not much like requirements or whatever, but at least even now, as like truly an adult, I'm like, I feel like that was a very fair deal. Like, I took care of my responsibilities, and I got to, go and enjoy my hobby that eventually became my job as well, right? So it worked out very good. Question number 5. I noticed that one of the things said about you is that you train extremely hard. The doc emphasized it too. At times, I believe you stated your work ethic is a little overrated. Could you go more in depth on that? All right, if I would go over that like now, I would say more rather than that my work ethic was maybe overrated, was that other people's were underrated. Like for a long time in the Smash scene, not nearly as much these days, which honestly is very good. We've seen improvements in that regard, but especially back like, some years ago, especially my early days of going to the US, basically it was like this stigma that like you don't practice, like it's the nerdy thing to do. I think part of it was like trying to be the cool kids, and part of it was like self-defense mechanism, where if you lose and you didn't practice, then it's because you didn't practice, right? And if you win, it's like, oh, you won without practicing. And as someone that, like, did practice a lot and were open about it, it was very easy for me to see how much bullshit a lot of people talked. This is not exclusive to like 1, 2, or 3 players. This was like very spread out. But as someone that did work hard, I could very clearly see that a lot of these people talked shit. So I think it was more that my work ethic was overrated in comparison to other people, but not really that it was maybe that overrated like as a standalone thing, right? Like maybe a little bit, but overall I think it was more that other people's work ethic was underrated rather than mine being super overrated. But yeah, of course if you compare the two, then I would still stand by that. But just to explain it a little bit more. But these days it's like, yeah, much more accepted. The whole like, high school mentality, like, oh, I didn't study, it's disappeared a lot. So I think that's amazing. So good shit, Smash community. Next question: what was your favorite part from the doc regarding your own stuff in it? So 2 things that were standing out to me, like for 2 different reasons. Like Genesis 2, from a competitor standpoint, was very nice. Because it was like my biggest win in singles, the one I, to this day still hold the closest to heart. But the other one, from a more personal standpoint, was the whole EVO 2013 story. I have told that story on stream before, a long time ago, but a lot of people didn't know the whole story with EVO 2013, me traveling there due to like Android really wanting to go, and basically set my pride to the side. Because for me, from my point of view, going into EVO 2013, I knew that the chances of me winning that tournament is close to 0. I knew it was a way too short time to even, reliably get back in shape at all. And playing at EVO 2013, I was out of shape. So it was like, it was tough. I think a lot of competitors in the same position might have struggled to make that decision. And for a bit, it was like, tough to accept it myself. But like, yeah, I think I knew from the start that, giving Android this chance, this opportunity that, he had never had before. And, seeing his happiness when, he, realized that he's going to go to the US. We're also going to get to play teams, right? Because both me and Android, and Aniolas for that matter, all of us have always preferred teams over singles. So it was basically like, giving your younger brother like his biggest wish. So like, I feel like a lot of my coverage over the years, it's been more on like the competitor side, which makes sense, right? But not as much on the personal side. So I think that was very cool for me to like that, a very big moment for me and for us was actually like covered in the doc, and in a really good way. It seems like a lot of people really like that section, and a lot of people had no idea that that's how it went down in the first place. So yeah, I would say that was actually like the coolest thing in a sense, because it like expanded outside of just like the tournament perspective and more like on the personal aspect of it all. So I think that was my favorite. Or no, I don't think. I know that was my favorite thing from the doc regarding like my own story. Next question: what kind of person do you think you came across as in the first doc as well as in the second documentary? I mean, in the first doc, I was barely not featured. I was in it like a tiny bit towards the end. It was not much, so I don't really know what I would say. It was like a few minutes where they mentioned me as like, this new player for the time being, reaching the top, right? But it didn't really go into like much of it at all. So I guess the only impression people that watched the documentary and maybe didn't know anything about the doc was like, a player that's really good, reached the top, but there's not really more that was expanded on that. In the metagame, I think you got to see a very clear, like both. Like this goes kind of back to the last question, where we got to see like a lot of like the personal side, but also the competitor side, right? So I think for people that watch metagame that might not have seen much from Smash following, or like beforehand, maybe they get like a bigger part of my personality compared to like people that follow the scene for a long time. Because, you know, like in terms of like probably all competitions and stuff, you have like narratives and stuff, and how, you know, people are portrayed, how they're seen, how they're talked about. And I think Metagame did a good job putting more of like a human side on me, while I feel like a lot of the stuff in like, you know, in terms of like commentary and stuff have more been like, you know, stone cold, competitor. The thing is, like, I am a bit more laid back and reserved than, you know, some people, but I think part of this entire thing is also the fact that, like, when I started going to the US, I literally couldn't even speak the language. So it's like, I'm not even sure how some people expected me to like be this super like standout, like taking all the attention, you know, socialize super much, because like I just didn't have that ability. Like my first trips to the US, it was literally Aniola's translating everything for me. And even like, you know, after a few times going to the US, I still struggled a lot communicating with people. And even as I got better, it didn't feel comfortable for a long time to even like communicate as much. I think a lot of people that do speak, like when they learn a second language, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Like you don't want to make too many mistakes. And for me, I was really bad at English, even for my age. So not even like bad compared to people that speak it fluently or whatever. I was like bad for my age. I was really, really bad at English. So that was like very, it was like quite uncomfortable to like socialize too much. But I mean, from the perspective, if you haven't learned a second language and you only speak English and you're fluent in that, maybe a lot of these people don't like understand like the struggle some people might experience with it. I mean, I don't think this is the entire part of it, but I think it's like part of what like shaped it as well. Because people say like first impressions last, right? And I do think it's like a lot of truth to that. So yeah, I think part of like that narrative was like came from there, like came from a time where I literally couldn't communicate with people, which was a weird time, because honestly around that time when I went to the US the first time, I was like honestly very energetic at events, and you know, socializing a lot, and sometimes maybe even being too loud when, you know, we're playing Smash and like doing like 6-team combos and stuff. So yeah, different times. So maybe that explains a little bit more into that whole thing as well. All right, last question. After all the brother moments in the dock, can we expect some merch to come from this? I mean, for me, when it comes to like these type of questions, like I'm always, you know, I'm always open for ideas like this, and I've seen quite a few people ask about this actually. But I mean, if it is like a clear interest for, you know, potential merch with the brothers, I'm open for it. Feel more than free in the comment section below to give ideas of, you know, potential ideas what this merch could look like, or just show interest if you like this is something you might potentially want to buy if we actually do go for it. I don't want to give any promise as of now that yes it will happen or yes it will be like this. It's something I will like, you know, keep in the back of my mind, and if we, you know, can find a great design, like come up with a great idea, and there seems to be enough interest, then yeah, I'll be up for it. I would of course talk with Android as well beforehand, but yeah, we'll see. It might happen. But yeah, that's gonna be all for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace. Alright, got a PB at least. Got a PB. Ice gotta hope.
That is
Diggins, what was that?
Oh! I did every single kill that match.